Well, you'd think after the Optus debacle, with thousands unable to call 000 and 3 people tragically losing their lives, that the federal government would have moved heaven and earth to make sure it never happens again. And here we are, 6 weeks later, all we're getting from Canberra now is a real-time register, a map on a website. Maybe, eventually. Communications Minister Annika Wells, who normally does a great job in the portfolio she has ordered the regulator to make the telcos, Optus, Telstra, the lot, publish live information about outages. Now, that might be okay, but here's the catch. Labor and the Greens have reportedly cut a deal to water it down. Instead of a genuine public register, it'll be on the telcos' own websites. The Opposition Communications Minister is Melissa McIntosh. She joins us now. Melissa, let's start with the basics. This doesn't go far enough, does it?
There is nothing more important than protecting your citizens as a government. And right from the beginning, when this outage happened, I think the minister has completely dropped the ball. She left the country, we know, during the crisis. And I've been pushing really hard in Parliament to have serious consequences for these telcos when something happens. And as you said, 6 weeks later, she might be pressuring the telcos to put something on their websites. We've been saying it needs to be a public register.
Yeah.
We've put legislation through to have a custodian that's meant to look over the whole 000 network. Well, what are they going to be doing? Why can't it be under them and their responsibility? It's like pushing the onus away from the government having any responsibility over the 000 network, our most essential network. And I'm so disappointed. And as you said, it looks like the government and the Greens are cutting some sort of deal, and the result is going to be that Australians aren't going to have the network they need, the strength in the 000 network, which we've been calling for from the very beginning.
And I've started the program talking about this because this is life or death. And a lot of people who are listening will one day have to rely on 000. Where would you like to see a live register positioned?
I would like it to be a public register run by the custodian, and it's automatic. So, right now it looks like you might have to, once if you go and buy a SIM card at Woolies or something, you've got to work out who your telco is. Is it Optus? Is it Telstra? It makes it difficult for people. It needs to be just one place with all the telcos that people can go in and go, well, this telco isn't doing very well. They've had multiple outages. I don't want to go with it. We need the transparency, and Australians need to be able to have the choice in who they have as their network provider. But not only this, I've been calling for the telcos to have reports every 3 months. So the government has them doing it every 6 months. They've decided in this stitch up with the Greens that it doesn't need to be public. It doesn't need to be a public report on what's going on within the telcos. Again, where's the transparency? Where is putting Australians first? Everything needs to be public when it's, as you said, life and death.
I wouldn't have thought that this measure in the wrong place does much to prevent another failure. What are they doing about preventing another technical failure?
The government should be pulling every lever that it has to prevent another failure. That's what I've been saying from the beginning. Let's have a thorough independent investigation into what occurred, but we don't have that. We have ACMA, the regulator, which is caught up in all of this because they failed in their duty investigating itself.
That's right.
So
they're the last people who should be investigating or reviewing what went on.
Absolutely. And we're now pushing really hard to have a Senate inquiry into what went on. I hope that gets up. I think the vote's going to be happening today. And as I said, I really tried hard to get those amendments through Parliament to have that public register, to increase the fines on telcos and to do everything we can to ensure this does not happen again.
You told me about a month ago about the net zero survey that you were running in your electorate of Lindsay, based around the Penrith area of Western Sydney. I read the results on air yesterday. Wow.
Yeah. I wanted to ask the people in my community what they thought. I think that's what every member of Parliament should do. And I knew that people were feeling really strongly about it because they're struggling so much. This isn't about climate ideology. This is about people not being able to put food on the table, genuinely not being able to pay their bills. And it's those people who are going to suffer under net zero and this renewables only approach that the government has. So people do feel really strongly about it in my community.
Well, when it was asked, would you rather net zero without a ceiling on price or cost, you had a number in the 80% range that said no way.
Yeah, 89%. I think it was in the high 80s.
And yet we have a policy. The government has a policy where there's no ceiling on what they spend.
Absolutely. And we haven't even seen the transmission lines start really rolling out yet. So the costs involved in that, I'm fearful of when we get to the point of no return and you just going to be so hard to bring costs back down again for Australians. And if you're paying, $1,000 to $1,300 more on your electricity bills than what was promised to you by the Albanese Labor government, if you're an everyday Australian in Western Sydney, in my seat, you are really feeling that.
And surprise, surprise, today we discover that the documents that Climate Change Minister Chris Bowen tried to keep secret now show that he was told by the bureaucrats that if he wants to reach net zero, power prices will, quote, significantly increase. He didn't want us to know about that.
Yeah, and what happened to the $275 less on your power bills? I think he didn't want us to know that, and he knew that prices weren't coming down. That was, that was a lie. They misled the Australian public on that promise over 90 times. The Prime Minister and his minister said that, and people believed that. People voted for Labor because of those promises. And now look where we're at, not being, people lining up in food banks, people sleeping on the riverbanks in my community, out in the streets, in car parks. This is Australia. This should not be happening. And it's the government's policies that are driving people into these positions.
Well said. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
No problem.